My husband's family invited me to a surprise family meeting. When I arrived, they handed me divorce papers and said, "Sign these, or you'll regret it." I smirked, pulled out my own papers, and said, "Actually, I have a surprise for you too." My husband's jaw dropped when he saw what it was. I knew something was off the moment I got the text. It was from my husband's sister, Julia. We were never close. In fact, she never texted me directly unless it was to relay a message from their mother or complain about something I'd done wrong. So when I saw her name pop up on my phone, my stomach turned. "Hey, we're having a small family gathering this Sunday at Mom's house. It's important. Be there at 3 p.m. It's a surprise, so don't tell Matt. Just show up." "No, hope you can make it," no friendly greeting, just a demand. I showed the text to my best friend, Claire, and she raised an eyebrow. "That sounds weird. Why wouldn't Matt know about it?" "Good question." My husband, Matt, was extremely close to his family. If they were planning something, he'd usually be the first to know. But the fact that they didn't tell him made me curious. Maybe it was some kind of intervention? A health issue? I texted Julia back. "Sure. See you then." I didn't tell Matt. I wanted to see what was going on first. Sunday came, and I drove to my mother-in-law's house. It was a huge old place in a wealthy neighborhood of Charleston, South Carolina. The kind of house that felt cold even in the summer. The moment I stepped inside, I knew this wasn't some friendly gathering. Matt's entire family was there, his mother, his father, Julia, his two brothers, and even his aunt and uncle, who lived a few states away. They were all seated in the living room like a damn council meeting. And in the middle of the coffee table, there was a folder. The air was thick with tension. "Sit down," his mother said. I didn't. I stood by the doorway, crossing my arms. "What's going on?" Matt's father, Robert, picked up the folder and opened it. "We need you to sign these." He slid the papers toward me. "It's for the best." I stepped closer and glanced at the top page. My heart pounded. Divorce papers. I let out a breathy laugh. "Are you serious?" His mother spoke up. "We've thought long and hard about this, and it's clear you're not a good fit for this family. You don't respect our traditions. You don't contribute the way a wife should. And you've been a distraction to Matt's future." I blinked. "A distraction?" Julia smirked. "Let's not act surprised. You know you don't belong here. We found a way to handle this quietly so that Matt doesn't have to be burdened." The audacity. The sheer arrogance. I looked around the room. They weren't just suggesting I leave. They were telling me. They thought they had the power to force me out of my own marriage. I chuckled. "Where is Matt?" His father shifted in his chair. "He's not here. He doesn't know about this yet. We're saving him from the stress of." I held up my hand. "So let me get this straight. You ambushed me, you drafted up divorce papers without his knowledge, and you expect me to sign them, just because you said so?" His mother smiled tightly. "It's for the best." That's when I smirked. I reached into my bag, pulled out a folder of my own, and tossed it onto the coffee table. "Actually," I said, "I have a surprise for you too." They stared at the folder like it was a bomb about to go off. Matt's father was the first to reach for it. He flipped through the papers, his face turning redder with each page. His hands shook. What is this?" I leaned in slightly. "Proof." His mother snatched the papers from him, skimming through them in horror. Julia grabbed a page and gasped. "How did you?" "I've known for a while now," I said. "I was just waiting for the right time." I glanced at my watch. And guess what? That time is now. Matt's father's face twisted in rage. This is fake." "There's no way you." "Oh, but I did." I tilted my head. "And you just proved you recognize exactly what's in those documents. Otherwise, why would you be so scared?" Silence. Matt's uncle, who had been sitting quietly in the corner, reached over and took a page for himself. His eyes widened. "Robert, is this true?" Matt's father didn't answer. His jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. His mother's hands trembled as she set the papers down. She looked up at me, her face pale. You have no idea what you've done." I smiled. "Oh, I think I do." The room was dead silent. I watched as Matt's family sat frozen, their perfect little world crashing down around them. Julia's face was pale, her hands clenched into fists. His mother looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. His father, oh, his father, he was shaking with barely contained rage. But they weren't the ones I was waiting for. Right on cue, the front door swung open. Matt stepped inside, looking confused. "Hey, Mom said there was some kind of," he stopped mid-sentence when he saw the scene in front of him. His eyes darted between the divorce papers on the table and the documents I'd just thrown down. What the hell is going on? His mother shot up from her seat. "Matt, sweetheart, sit down. We can explain," I cut her off. "You should sit down, Matt. You'll want to hear this." I didn't give anyone a chance to control the conversation. I turned to Matt and dropped the bombshell. "Your family tried to ambush me into signing divorce papers behind your back," I said. "But they didn't expect me to have my own paperwork." He frowned. "What?" I stepped closer and tapped the folder I had brought. "That's everything I found over the past few months. Bank records. Emails. Hidden transactions. You might want to take a look." Matt hesitated before reaching for the papers. As he flipped through them, his face drained of color. His breath hitched. His eyes widened. "Dad," he whispered, his voice shaking. "What the hell is this?" His father didn't answer. "Mom?" Matt's voice was louder now. "Tell me this isn't real." His mother wouldn't even look at him. I crossed my arms. "It's real, Matt. Your dad's been funneling money out of your joint accounts for years. They used you as a piggy bank. Business failures, bad investments, covering Julia's debts. Every time they ran low on money, guess whose account they pulled from?" Matt looked like he'd been punched in the gut. He turned back to the papers, flipping faster now, his breathing uneven. This isn't possible." "Oh, it is," I said. "And it gets worse." I pointed to a specific document. "That right there? That's proof that your parents put our house up as collateral for one of their shady business loans." I turned toward his father. "And guess what? That loan defaulted. Which means, Matt, if we hadn't found out in time, we would have lost our home." Matt's hands started shaking. He turned to his father, eyes burning with betrayal. "You did what?" His father's jaw was locked so tight, I thought he might crack a tooth. I wasn't done. "Your family set me up as the villain, Matt," I continued, my voice cold. "They made me out to be some distraction while they drained you dry. And now that I know the truth, they wanted to get rid of me before I could tell you." Julia snapped. "That's a damn lie." I turned to her, unfazed. "Oh? You sure about that?" I reached into my bag again and pulled out something else. A printed copy of her messages. "Maybe you'd like to explain why you were texting your friend about how easy it was to trick Matt into signing financial documents without reading them?" Julia's face turned bright red. I didn't give her a chance. I have screenshots. Your conversations, your bank transfers, everything." I turned to Matt. "Your family isn't just entitled. They're criminals." His father slammed his fist on the table. "That's enough." I turned to him slowly. "Oh, you don't get to decide that anymore." Matt was breathing hard now, staring at his parents like they were strangers. His mother finally spoke, her voice shaky but still desperate. "Matthew, honey, we were helping you. Everything we did was for you, don't," Matt snapped. His voice was raw, broken. "Just, don't." His mother flinched, her mouth snapping shut. For the first time, I saw real fear in their eyes. Because Matt wasn't their puppet anymore. He turned to me, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Clarity. He looked at the divorce papers they had shoved at me earlier. Then, slowly, he looked at mine. The ones I had prepared. The ones that would destroy his family's grip over him for good. His voice was quiet, but firm. "What do we do next?" I smiled. "First," I said, sliding a pen across the table. "You sign my papers." Matt stared at the pen in front of him. His hands were still shaking, but his eyes, those betrayed, furious eyes, stayed locked on his parents. His mother was pale, her lips pressed into a tight line. His father looked like he was barely keeping himself from exploding. And Julia? She was seething. I could feel the weight of the moment. If Matt signed my papers, everything his family had built, their control, their access to his money, their ability to manipulate him, would crumble. But before he could reach for the pen, his father stood up so fast his chair screeched against the hardwood floor. "No," Robert growled. His voice was deep, full of warning. "You are not signing that." Matt flinched, but I didn't. "Oh, he's signing it," I said. "And after that, we're pressing charges. Fraud, identity theft, financial manipulation, hell, I'm sure a forensic accountant will have a field day with this." Robert's face turned a dangerous shade of red. His hands clenched into fists. "You think you can come into my house and threaten me?" I smirked. "Not a threat. Just a fact." Then his mother spoke up, her voice trembling but still laced with desperation. "Matthew, honey, don't do this," she pleaded. "Think of your family. Think of everything we've done for you." Matt looked up at her, his jaw tight. "You stole from me," he said. His voice was hoarse, but there was steel underneath. "You lied to me. You nearly made me lose my home." His mother reached for his hand, but he pulled away like her touch burned. "Please, sweetheart," she whispered. "We love you." I snorted. "Yeah? Funny kind of love." Then I turned to Julia, who had been too quiet for too long. "You've got nothing to say?" I taunted. "No snarky remarks? No little digs? Or are you too busy thinking about how screwed you are?" Julia's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She looked at her father, then her mother, then back at me. Then, suddenly, she snapped. "You want the truth?" she hissed, stepping toward me. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, please give me the truth. I love the truth." Julia sneered. "Fine. You were never part of this family. We tolerated you. You were an outsider from the beginning. The only reason my parents didn't push you out sooner is because Matt was too stupid to see through you." Matt's fists clenched. "Julia," but she wasn't done. "You're nothing without Matt," she spat. "What are you going to do when this is over? Huh? You think you'll just walk away and be fine?" News flash, Matt's success came from us. His connections? Ours. His opportunities? Ours. You take him away from us, and you'll see just how fast your life falls apart. I tilted my head. "That so?" Julia smirked, crossing her arms. "Yeah. So go ahead. Leave. Divorce him. Take whatever pathetic little revenge you think you have. But at the end of the day, we win." I chuckled. And then, without breaking eye contact, I pulled out another folder. Her smirk faltered. "What is that?" I grinned. "Oh, Julia." I tapped the folder against my palm. "Did you really think I wouldn't dig extra deep before coming here?" I tossed the folder onto the table, right next to the divorce papers. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, dramatically waving my hands, "let's talk about embezzlement." Julia went stiff. Her father's head snapped toward her so fast I thought he might get whiplash. "What?" I nodded toward the folder. "Turns out, little miss, I'm so superior, has been skimming money from your family's accounts for years." Julia's face drained of color. "That's a lie." I opened the folder and pulled out the evidence. Bank records. Wire transfers. Fake invoices. Payments to herself disguised as business expenses. "Oh, and my favorite part, do you recognize this name?" I slid a specific page toward Matt. Matt frowned, reading it. Then his eyes widened. This is Derek." Julia's eyes went wild. "Shut up." Matt looked at her, realization dawning. "The Derek you said was just a friend? The guy you swore you never had anything with?" Silence. "Wow," I said, shaking my head. "Not only did you steal from your own family, but you funneled money to your side piece?" Julia lunged at me, but Robert grabbed her arm. "Is this true?" His voice was low, dangerous. Julia yanked her arm away, but she didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Her father's face twisted in fury. "You idiot," he bellowed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" His mother's hands flew to her mouth. "Julia, please tell me this isn't true." But the look on Julia's face said everything. Oh, this was juicy. Matt looked at me. "How long have you known?" I shrugged. "A couple months." I wanted to be sure before I said anything. His shoulders slumped. Jesus Christ. Robert was still fuming, flipping through the evidence with shaking hands. This is a disaster. Yep, I said cheerfully. And now? It's your problem. I turned to Matt. Sign the papers, I said. Let's end this. He looked at me, at his mother sobbing into her hands, at his father sitting in stunned silence, and finally, at Julia, who was trembling with rage. Then he picked up the pen. And signed. The final break. The end of their control. His father exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the table. You're going to regret this, he spat. I smiled. Oh, I don't think so. Then I picked up my papers, grabbed Matt's hand, and walked out the door, leaving their perfect little world in ruins. The moment Matt signed the papers, it was over. I walked out of that house with my head high, Matt beside me, and his family scrambling to figure out how everything had gone so wrong for them. But I wasn't done yet. Because revenge? Oh, it's best served slow and public. Phase 1, financial ruin. The first thing I did was hand everything I had on them over to a lawyer and a forensic accountant. Turns out, when you mess with money this much, the IRS gets very interested. Within weeks, Matt's father's business was under investigation. His shady loans? His fake reports? Exposed. And since they had put up their house, yes, their house, as collateral for some of their failed investments, the bank came knocking. Their fancy home in Charleston? Gone. Their luxury cars? Repossessed. Even their family business, which had been passed down for generations, collapsed under the weight of lawsuits and unpaid debts. I heard from a mutual friend that Matt's mother had a full-on breakdown when the bank seized their house. I wish I could say I felt bad. I didn't. Phase 2, Julia's fall from grace. Julia. The family's golden child. The one who thought she was untouchable. Guess what? She got touched. By the law. The money she embezzled? The fake invoices? The hidden payments to her little boyfriend Derek? All of it was turned over to the authorities. And here's the kicker, because her father's business was collapsing at the same time, there was no one left to cover for her. She was charged with fraud, money laundering, and theft. When she was arrested, I actually popped a bottle of champagne. She tried to play the victim, but oh, karma wasn't having it. I made sure her employer knew everything. She got fired publicly. No references, no second chances. Her boyfriend, Derek? He vanished the moment things got bad. Left her to deal with the mess alone. Last I heard, she was working a miserable job, drowning in debt, and completely shunned by the high society crowd she used to brag about being part of. Good riddance. Phase 3, the divorce and freedom. Matt and I finalized our divorce quickly. I got everything I was entitled to, my share of our assets, the house they tried to gamble away, and peace of mind. Matt? He wasn't innocent in all of this. He had been blind for too long, letting his family walk all over him. But I could see now, he was done with them. Once the truth hit him, he never spoke to his parents or Julia again. I'll give him credit, he didn't fight me on the divorce. He signed everything, apologized for being blind to the truth, and walked away from them forever. And me? I took my settlement, moved to a new city, and built a beautiful new life for myself. A life where I was finally free. Final nail in the coffin. The last thing I did? I made sure everyone in their social circle knew what happened. The elite families they used to rub shoulders with? The high-end business contacts? Their so-called friends? All of them saw the truth. They became the talk of the town, not for their success, but for their shame. No one wanted to be associated with them. They were ruined. And me? I was thriving. Sometimes, revenge isn't just about getting back at someone. Sometimes, it's about watching them crumble under the weight of their own mistakes. And I had front row seats. The end.